Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast with author Sarah F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson. Blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sarah F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hey guys, what is up? Happy to have you back with us today. Hey Chen, what's up?
Hey, chin's up.
I'm happy to have you here, man. Coming all the way back to North Carolina just for the show. I can't thank you enough.
Studio East.
Love it. Or South Carolina, whatever, whichever Carolina, you know.
I'm in the Carolinas.
Over there, Carolinaville. And today we have, I'm just going to slaughter the last name again, even though I just figured out how to say it. But I got Butch. See, now I'm all messed up. Butch Erskine, right? But I probably said it all wrong. So Butch, introduce yourself. Tell everybody about you because we're excited to have you on. We're talking survival communities today, and you guys know how much I love this topic. So very excited to have Butch on. And so why don't you introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, Chen. Thank you all for inviting me over to have this discussion with you all. It's always a blast. A lot of fun to learn from each other. And I come over from Hope for Survival. We're about 2.5, 3 years old maybe. And anyway, we all started out from writing a book on how to get preparing food, water, shelter, security to hopefully save your life. And then we drove a website, Hope for Survival, and teaching classes anywhere folks would sit and listen on preparedness. And then recently a second book came out called The Mindset, Hope for Survival, The Mindset, which focuses strictly on you, the individual, on how to prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, psychological, and psychological, so that you know who you are. You need to know yourself before you can really help others. It's kind of, I call the mental toolbox. And hopefully get folks to start seeing things, verbal, nonverbal, out of the box to help you stay left of bang. And then we kind of grew from that into last fall. I started building community teams. We call them nodes or tribes, families, communities, and taking those individuals that we had trained over about 1.5 to 2 years and getting them to plant seeds to help others get prepared. And then I have a website where I do a weekly newsletter and I do a Thursday Zoom call where folks that follow Hope for Survival, we're a big family, and they log in on Zoom and we talk preparedness. We have guest speakers on, and then we have what's called Chatter That Matters, where everyone talks, and we may talk about medicinal essential oils. We may how to look for illnesses in animals. We may talk firearms, laws, the Constitution, leadership. So trying to keep everyone active and keep it upbeat. And everything we do focuses around the word hope. Hence, Hope for Survival.
That's an important piece right there. When you delve into the world of survival, you can start to get a pretty grim outlook on things. So remembering that we're doing this for the best of everybody involved is so we have a brighter future, a prepared future, is really important to keep your eye on that prize rather than doom and gloom and things like that. So, Butch, why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit of how you got involved in this mission? I would love to hear some background on where you came from. How'd you end up here?
Well,
Sarah, I could answer that. I said, hey, Butch, I got a bunch of friends that do podcasts. You want to come on the show? I'm sorry. Back to you, Butch.
No, love it.
That is a very
I just think it's really interesting what your background fields are, and it's interesting stuff. So I would like to hear that.
This is kind of crazy. I grew up in Southern West Virginia. I grew up as a musician. I went to college as a music major and figured out, I like music, but I don't want to teach kids. And I had long hair and I was a little bit left-leaning politically. And I watched this video, or I was walking through a mall one day and there was a video on a TV playing and I thought it was John Wayne, and I went in and it was actually President Reagan giving one of his I Love America speeches. And it's like, man, I want some of this. So I went and got my hair cut. I went and joined the Air Force and spent 20 years in the Air Force in law enforcement security. And my last 9 years in the Air Force, I went on a special duty assignment, and I was a Air Force security advisor to Air Force Special Operations. And we were working the U.S. counterterrorism program and supporting SOCOM and JSOC. So when I retired from the Air Force, my primary background was terrorism, anti-terrorism, and I came out and I was working as a contractor in D.C., then down in North Alabama. And then I went back to school and got my master's degree in emergency management and disaster recovery. And in that process, I switched over and was working emergency management. And I had taken probably 40 to 50 different FEMA classes, and I got their certification in ICS. And the biggest thing that I noticed was, and it all makes sense, that, you know, during a disaster, they're focused on critical infrastructure. You know, we have to get the roads open, we have to get hospitals open, and, you know, get the water moving and so on and so forth. But the thing that wasn't in there was who's taking care of the lady and the man across the street and around the corner. And if it's a prolonged type disaster, I felt the need that needed to start talking to folks and getting them to put back some food, water, how to filter water, and security is my background, so I started building security plans anyway, and it grew from that. And then I started teaching down at Heritage Life Skills in Waynesville, North Carolina, and it's grown from that. And I started with like 10 people 2 or 3 years ago, and 3 years ago, and I think we now have just under 500. And from training individuals, it's like, well, you know, we need to work on getting these individuals that are trained to start helping other people in the community. So I started this thing called a 5-mile radius. And basically it is taking an individual and doing a Google overhead of basically a rough 5-mile radius around where they live at, and learning your community, learning who may be like-minded, working together to grow, learning skills. So if you do have a man-made, natural, technological disaster, you can survive as a community. You know,
you have that network. You made an interesting point there that I wanna point out. Through all that FEMA training that you did, you found out that FEMA is more worried about the critical infrastructure, not about the everyday Joe on the street, right? And a lot of us would believe that, you know, oh, well, if a disaster hits or something, there's some kind of a government program that's going to come and assist me. There's going to be somebody there to help me. I don't need to prepare because I have my government safety net. But the point that you just made is that's not really an individualized thing. That's something you need to prepare for yourself and be diligent about. And this is one of the ways to make that happen.
Yeah, so, you know, and not as a slight on FEMA, the thing is that FEMA is called upon by the state governor where the disaster's at, or the region where there's a multi-state disaster. And when they come in, they don't bring a lot of people. They bring in the resources that was requested by the governor in that state. Mm-hmm. All incidents, disasters are like at the local level, right?
Right.
And if there is not a request for enough cots, water, food, and so forth, but even if they have everything they need, then there's the issue, dependent on the disaster, of how we're going to get it out to the people. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, and then if crime starts breaking out and looting and so forth, then there's that problem added on top of it. So,
right. And they have to think big picture. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit like FEMA services at all. I'm just saying they have like bigger things to worry about than you.
Yeah,
you got to kind of be taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and keep in mind that over the past years, FEMA tried to run programs on the net, like FEMA.gov, and they've tried several different programs to get folks to go to their site and download checklists and learn from here's what you, Joe Citizen, need to do for your family. And the people didn't bite. Mm-hmm. There was no self-responsibility. There's still that self-dependency of we're going to wait on you to bring it into us, right? So at Hope for Survival, one of the big things that we talk about and that we work towards is our mission is preparedness and our goal is self-reliance, right? Because you may not have a disaster, however, you may get in a car accident or you may lose your job or you may become ill, that you can still use these resources that you've been putting back to help you get through these rough times, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of sad in a way, but we as humans, we have car insurance, home insurance, life insurance.
Yep.
We have all of it, but the single most important insurance we don't have, and that is self-reliance.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm always saying, like, you have to have the prepared individuals to make those prepared communities, to make those prepared areas, because we only have each other if disaster hits. And God forbid it wasn't a localized event, right? Because at least with localized events, you still have outside people that come in to help. But if it was, a bigger nationwide event, now who's coming to help you?
Right. And if they don't come to help you, you know what? We're going to be okay because we built a self-reliance package. On our community team, where Home's at, as we were building part of our process with our community and our security team, we even involved our local sheriff. And he's been out a couple times and we've gone over things and a mission statement. And, he was very, very supportive. But one of the positive comments he said, he's like, I wish other communities would take these steps because it would take a lot of burden off of the first responders when we know certain neighborhoods, if no one's critically injured. Right?
Yep. I know where you're going.
Take care of yourself and your community, and we don't have to worry about you right away.
Absolutely. Because we know that community has its own response team in effect.
Absolutely.
I love that. So one of the things we talked about in past conversation was when you try to form a group, a lot of times you're meeting with people who are in other towns and other areas that are close. Yes, within driving distance, yes. But you're talking a 5-mile radius around your house because when the stuff goes down, those are really the people that are going to be around you, right? So let's jump back into that 5-mile radius breakdown and how we should kind of be approaching that.
Yeah. So when putting the 5-mile radius and putting it together, there's several different segments that I work on. One is who is in your group, who's around you, and then one of the things from my prior life that we always kind of focused on in areas in foreign countries and so forth is when we would start doing an assessment. I'm really big into risk assessment, risk management, where are you vulnerable, how are you going to mitigate it. So we talk about the physical study, the human terrain, military and police, critical infrastructure, the economy and finance and politics and governance. So if I'm going out to do a vulnerability assessment for a family or I'm doing training in another community with a new group, I cover these areas and I show them, look, just in a quick search, this is all the information on your community I went and found that pertained in these areas. Like within your 5-mile radius, have you marked all potential water sources? Have you marked all potential hazards? electrical, nuclear, dams, things of that nature that could be a problem in your 5 mile area if things go really, really bad and there's no one manning these resources. So we kind of look at that. Do you have areas where you can grow large plots of food?
Who's got cattle? That's around me.
What are this is really important, and whether you're on the left side or on the right side, but what are the politics in your state and in your county and in your 5 mile area? Because that could actually, if things get really, really bad and they start controlling resources of, let's say, truckloads of food and who they're going to send them to and not send them to, this could be a deciding factor of if they're going to roll food into you because you're of the opposite political party that put that person in office. And when you start dealing with starvation, even trusted agents of your group, when you see your children starving, you're going to basically do anything you can to get food for your kids, right?
Absolutely.
So it boils down even further to who knows how much resources you have stored back, and have you stored them all in the same place? Hopefully not. But so one other thing that I try to share with, I say teach, but I'm sharing it with them, is I show them how to do a very simple monthly threat matrix for global, national, and then down into their 5 mile radius. If the 18-wheelers stop rolling and you live 300 miles from the nearest city, all grocery stores, gas stations, and pharmaceuticals are basically stocked for 3 days.
Right.
And
yep.
we try to get people, which I talked a lot about in my second book, The Mindset. We try to get folks to function in the 10% group, meaning when the 90% group runs to buy toilet paper, you're the 10% group that's running the opposite direction from them. And you're kind of always on a pivot in that you have everything you need and you're making decisions faster than the reaction of the masses, the 90%ers, because you want to stay away from potential hazards and threats. That may mean if you're in an urban area, within the first 24 hours, maybe to 36 hours, you may have a plan that you're going to bug out to a suburban or rural area. So it's having the mental mindset to pay attention to things that are going on. Just in the last 18 months, we've had two, we can start out with coronavirus and into COVID-19. And how the masses reacted to, think about it. You had hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, going out into stores to buy the last of toilet paper and other products when there was an invisible virus that could have been deadly.
Yeah, they're all mashing together in lines and everything. Yep.
We who are prepared, we want to stay away from that whole environment, right? Because we are prepared. Mm-hmm. And then just in the last 6 months, we were monitoring. I'm wanting to say it was possibly the Colonial deal with the gasoline.
Yeah, with the
short.
pipelines. Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the event, but at the same time, there was we were having a lot of tornadoes down in Louisiana and Mississippi, and they were spawning off.
A massive flooding down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And we had a lot of folks up in the North Georgia mountains. They lost electricity. One spurt was 3 days and one spurt was 5 days. So individuals who were part of that 90% group, good people, but they were part of that group because they were not prepared, were friends with individuals who are in the 10% group and prepared. And they came over and stayed at their house for several days because there was no sanitation, there was no water. and yet the 10 percenters had plans in place to have continued water, continued air, or electricity and sanitation and so forth. So
I wanted to pick your brain on just one thing.
yes,
So a lot of times we talk about urban communities, and hopefully you have a plan to bug out. But what about the people that can't afford to leave their area? They don't have other places they could be storing their long-term food supplies, things like that. Very limited economic resources, and you're stuck kind of in that urban environment when things start going down. Let's talk to just why you're still better off for having your product, and how maybe a little bit of how you're going to handle yourself defensively, and obviously that your community is going to improve that aspect.
Surviving, trying to build plans in the urban environment. I know a lot of folks say, man, in the first 12 hours, you need to get out of there if you can. And like you said, there's thousands who cannot, whether it's physically they can't do it, socioeconomic prevents it from happening. My mindset is whether you're urban, suburban, or rural, if you will still apply basic principles, you can still do it. I mean, if you're on the 5th floor of an apartment, or wherever you may be in that apartment, if you know who's in your apartment building, you can set security up throughout that building. You can have early warning for when they're coming down the street, for when they're coming in the basement door to come into your facility. There's all kind of different, and it's not expensive, all kind of different mechanisms, because what you want is early warning, right? You're not going to stop them most likely, as long as we're talking non-lethal. You're not going to stop them. However, there's things you can do to set out cameras. There's you can buy little alarms at the dollar store and Lowe's that are less than $10, that if they break, open a door, it's going to trigger it, and it's going to set off a loud screeching sound, and that's going to give you early warning, right?
Right.
But individuals who have, one of the things we in the class I do, bugging in and bugging out urban, is you can hide resources behind sheetrock in the walls, hide it underneath beds. I've even witnessed a large coffee table that was covered with a lamp on it that looked awesome behind a sofa, and it was probably about 15 cases of canned food.
Right.
If you lose your sanitation, if all the apartments aren't filled and you know of an empty one, hey, if you got to go through the wall to get into it, or even go through a hole in the wall, knock the hole in the wall if you need to get out of that apartment, because a threat's coming in the door. But there's things you can use to block your door. Put in longer screws to screw the frame into the wall, to the wall. It may not be the best, but it's going to give you better than what you currently have. The big thing is water.
I was talking to one gentleman about that with the apartment building, and he's like, "Yeah, but all of my neighbors are crazy." So I was like, "Well, there's a possibility you could be the crazy one." But so you were talking about how meet all of your neighbors. Don't discredit them because of one way or another. Know who everybody is, so that they're still an available resource. You're still a friendly face.
Yeah, because the big thing is pre-event. To me, pre-event, you want to learn and know as much about who's around you as possible, whether it's pro or con. One of the some of the ways of doing that is just find an event. Maybe you're going to have a cookout, things of that nature, where even if there's like a patio where some of your neighbors at your apartment go and hang out, just go hang out with them a little bit, and just kind of observe what do they talk about. What's their mindset? Is there anything in there of commonality that you can potentially connect on and build on?
Mm-hmm.
Because
you can learn a lot by either like walking the dog or
yeah.
because what's their yard art, what's the stickers on their car, what's there's a lot of stuff you could pick up. What yard signs do they put up during political season? There's a lot you can pick up.
If you've got neighbors like in a cul-de-sac or suburban area, you've got a lot of people around you who are your neighbors. But if things go bad, who are going to be your real neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
For example, one of the things last summer during the Seattle and Portland nightly events that were occurring, they were talking about how the organizations conducting the riots, how they had taken photographs of the men and women in blue, and they were finding their addresses, and they were going to start taunting their families. If you want to find a quick way for law enforcement to walk off the job, and that is when their families are being threatened.
Right.
But if you have a good community and a community security team around that has your back, that is going to protect your family, maybe move your family out of that home to a safe area until you get home. That may be one of your plans that you build and have in place. Maybe one or more of them have safe rooms in their home. But
it's funny. It's funny you say that. When I first moved into the community I live in now, I found out one of my not next door neighbors, but one of the neighbors on my road was a police officer. And that first storm prep we had, I went over and introduced myself and gave my phone number and said, I know you're going to be out and about with the storm. If your wife needs anything, make sure she knows she can come knock on my door, give me a call, whatever she needs, I'm here. And it's building relationships with people.
And that's a comfort to the
officer. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, when you're on duty and you're in potentially violent areas where someone at any second can take your life, and in the back of your mind you're worried about your family, you're put that officer's at risk right away.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we try to focus on too is most of the folks that are part of Hope for Survival are over the age of 45 and 50. So if we balance that out and say, okay, top average, bottom average, now we're like at mid 60 to 70. Almost all these folks, or I should say none of these folks, are going to be the ones that can grab their battle rattle, throw on a vest, and take off running across the field to a perimeter and jump in a foxhole.
Right.
Right? So it is working through now. It is working through, instead of like teaching tactics and maneuvers, it's building plans using humans and technology to give them standoff distance, security, and depth. So if I live 5 miles from Chin, and then Chin reaches out another 4 miles to Sarah, I now have a 9-mile buffer around me that I'm working on. And you want to build this all the way from where you're at into your community, because a lot of the information that you're going to want to try to have to make good decisions to adjust your plans is going to be coming out of your community. Our crime rate's up. So a lot of the websites, I had a lot of them in the book, The Mindset, but a lot of the websites and stuff that we use, you can sign up for and get alerts. They give you the information is out there. It's taking the time and having the discipline now to build these mechanisms to get you the information to utilize in your plans. And that is, I don't think it's really any secret for anyone. The biggest vulnerability I find when I go out to work with families in different cities and so forth, folks are doing great things. They're building, great amounts of resources. And then when I say, okay, well, show me your binder where you have all your plans at, it's empty. It's all in their head. They have built all these layers of food and security, communications, route surveys, and all of it. It's in their head. So if they're taken out tomorrow, whoever in their family steps in to continue that process to survive, they're kind of coming into it blind if they either haven't read it in writing or they have participated with the primary person along the path. And in most places, that's not the case. So that's another area we're kind of focusing on. I'm trying to drop nuggets of getting folks to focus on taking time to put things in writing. Well, it's in the safe. Well, who has the combo to the safe?
Who knows the combination? Yep, we can do that one.
The binder's in the safe. All they got to do is get it out. Well, have you monthly had them go and open the safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do they know the little tricks for it and everything, where you got to shake it twice and?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And add the stress to it. Right.
Yeah.
Now
Exactly.
Their hands are shaking and their brain's rattled, and you're trying to keep them from getting brain freeze, and they're trying to get this spin dial combination open, and they can't because they can't hold their hands still because, and true too, they haven't practiced it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, how many, we all know the kids do fire drills and, in school, and, a lot of offices have all, disaster drills where, evacuate the building kind of stuff. But how many people do that at home?
Yeah.
There is a young lady in a family at a location who moved out of an urban environment to a rural area, and she has 2 children, a husband, and her father, and they went from an urban area to now kind of a farm with fruits and gardens and animals. And she does great training with her 2 children. They're both under the age of 10. First aid training, self-defense training, things that you can eat out in the woods. She takes them out and teaches them full plate, full schedule, 90 miles an hour.
Yep.
But it's
fun to do with the kids, though. They have a blast with it. So if you think, I don't know. And they might kind of hem and haw at first, but you know what? They hem and haw about everything at first. It doesn't have to do with an iPad. Just get them out there and get going with it, and it creates those rewarding experiences. I love that.
You're doing them a great service.
Yep.
Yeah, good life skills, good foundation.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we took our son out of Boy Scouts, because we were like, we do more on the weekend than they do. So,
Sure.
We're doing a better job, I think. So, Butch, one of the things that we talked about, and it has to do with the mindset book, is that because you are preparing yourself physically and mentally, you are probably going to be called on as a leader in these situations. And that's something that I preach heavily on my podcast, is that, you're the one who's been listening to my podcast for 5 years. You're the one who's been learning all this information right along with me. You're the one who now has the binder, and you have all the resources and the tools and the skills. So chances are you're going to be called upon when that, or not even called upon, but maybe even just looked up to, because you have that kind of information when things go down. Can you talk a little bit to that leadership aspect of, what people should be preparing for there mentally?
Yeah. So the leadership block of it, to me, is critical. And most folks who have been following Hope for Survival from the beginning will pretty much tell you, if I start talking about a topic, I normally have a hidden agenda behind it. Because, and I'll use leadership as an example. So last year when COVID hit, it's like we have to do something to keep these folks mentally active and learning preparedness. They cannot stop now. So started Zoom, and we've had like 56 weeks of Zoom call weekly on Thursday night. But last summer, roughly, I started talking about leadership and building leadership into preparedness and topics. And I had a Marine friend come on and talk. He was in Iraq years back, and he came on and talked about the importance of leadership. And our guest this coming Thursday night, congressional candidate that 30 years in the Army, retired colonel, he's coming on to talk about leadership. But to get the individuals active, I said, okay, here's 15 or so topics, everything from medicinal plants to essential oil, communications, things of that nature. I said, pick one of these that you like, and I want you to put together a brief on it, right? But I didn't tell them the after the fact was the information is going to help everyone, but I want you to get comfortable in putting together information and talking to a group about it. And if you can't do that via camera on Zoom, how on earth are you going to stand before your family and convince them to follow you when things go bad, or stepping out of your home and convincing the homes around you that you know what you're talking about if you cannot exemplify leadership qualities? So we continued down that path. We just finished a second series of briefs also. So it's a matter of getting them involved.
That's a great aspect of it, to have them prepare their own stuff. I should reach out to my audience.
And like with the binder, you were saying, what if I thought I was gonna like lead my family or lead my little neighborhood, right? But what if I was on a business trip out of town?
Yeah.
And somebody else had this, or what if I was injured, or
so your leadership plan should actually be a part of that binder too.
So getting everybody kind of, or not everybody, but I like your idea of leadership being one of the skills.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, the community team in Huntsville, they're currently using 3 individuals, right? The community team in Western North Carolina, I don't have any involvement in picking their leader.
Mm-hmm.
I bring them together, right? Let them meet, and they start going into action, and it's up to them to determine who they want as their leader. They can hire the leader and they can fire the leader, right? By group vote. But the leader kind of keeps them all within the guardrails. Hey, when's this is our next meeting. What do you all want to train on? What are we going to line up for training, right? Mm-hmm. We have all these skills within our own individuals in the group, or is there another topic we need training on, and we'll work to bring them in from the outside,
Great
because we have all different skill levels. We have individuals who hunt, who trap, who fish. They have great skills, right?
Right.
But also in our group, we have individuals that were maybe business owners, and they spent their whole life running a business, and they never in the city, and they never really had time or took the opportunity to go and do these other skills, Auto mechanics, it's another one.
And all that stuff should be cross-trained anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the business owner might not be good at fishing, but he might be good at logistics.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Gathering info.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The individual who is the group leader of this specific group that they voted as their leader was very good at logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's they voted. And there's a lot of cross-checking. I traveled down to Georgia a month or so ago, and I try to, when time permits, I try to at least one time a month go on the road to one of these communities and spend half a day or a day with them in their training to either contribute to it or watch it or learn myself. But I watched them, they all brought in their bug out bags, right? And it was a matter of everyone going through their bag and explaining what they had. And then the questions asked of within the group is, why do you have that, right? How can I use that? And I'm real big on the one is none, two is one, and three is better, right? And if you've got a much needed resource in that bag, that in your mind mentally is going to help you get from point A to point B, what is your backup for it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if at all possible, have you reached out to maybe find someone to teach you a skill that if for some reason you lose that bag and you need that resource to get from point A to point B, something else you could use or how you could possibly make one?
Yep. We've got a listener, Denise, and she was saying that she is in the rural area. She makes a lot of things very handy, very preparedness minded. And she's got people who, move into the area and want her to make things for them. Like, I'll buy it from you, right? But she's now learned to say, no, I'm going to teach you to make it. So that's
absolutely, Denise.
That's an awesome, you might not think of yourself as a leader, but there you go. That's the example of where you stepped up to educate. I love that.
Yeah. And that's, earlier offline, we were talking about folks that may be a little older than some of us. They are great resources.
Mm-hmm.
I try, Vietnam vets, talking about the mindset, retired nurses, retired doctors. How did you used to do things when you didn't have the resources that you have today?
Absolutely.
Home remedies, right?
Yeah.
That they are a gold mine, So another thing that we kind of encourage folks to do is to build a home library. If you lose everything
paperback.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You can't remember it all. It's impossible to remember all this stuff. But where can you go to pull it off your shelf to refresh your memory or hand it to someone else to say, you need to read this right here because I need you to go fix this or I need you to address this problem.
And the older how-to books are just great for that kind of stuff. I mean, you can go to the used bookstore and just start digging through, and there's much.
I do that all the time. I'm buying books on like masonry, carpentry.
Yes.
Old books at the old bookstore. Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm drawing a blank here when like a proproperty sale when someone passes away.
Estate sale.
Estate sales. Those are awesome.
Yes.
I've bought bins of washers and connectors and all kinds of good stuff at estate sales.
Yeah, the older tools.
Hand tools.
Yep, exactly.
They're great.
Yep.
Exactly. And they're pretty neat too to learn. And sometimes then you might need a book on like how it actually looked when it was first around, because they might have changed shape over time, as people jerry-rigged them to make them still usable and things like that.
So one of the other things that we do is, I told you about how we do the Thursday night Zoom and all that, and I do the Saturday newsletter and the webpage. But another thing that I kind of added was the app called Signal.
Mm-hmm.
So we started the Thursday night group. We set up a Hope for Survival Zoom group, and I just sent them a note early this morning and said, "Man, I'm so proud of you all," because I had just been telling my wife, it's like I'm so proud of. I'm sitting there, and all day long, there's men, there's women, talking about canning, dehydrating, freeze dried. I tried this and it didn't work. Does anyone have a suggestion? And they're just like going at it. Another nice feature to having that is because we're spread out in multiple states. couple during the gas, the colonial issue. We had two different families in Texas, and they were trying to get back to North Carolina. So we had individuals searching gas on their path coming back.
Right. You form that network.
Feeding them information on where there's gas shortages or where there's gas available to get them all the way back into Western North Carolina. Alerts that come out, if someone sees something, they just post it on there and ask, does anyone have anything on this? So it's
and I also love that you haven't mentioned the FB word at all, the Facebook word at all, because I'm trying to figure out networks away from that horrible site. So I love that you're grassroots.
I'm not a I have a Hope for Survival page on that app, but all I use it for is to push people towards the website.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's kind of like collecting water and the bottom of the bucket's got a big hole in it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of traffic that comes out of there.
Yep. Pinterest is a great place to be, though. You should
Yes.
try that out a little bit, because Pinterest is really great DIY stuff. I love that. So I just get lost there. So
I think one of the things too, you two probably know this better. One of the things that the last 2.5, 3 years, I have been so heavily involved in working within Hope for Survival. I haven't really had time to come outside and get fresh air, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you and Jim and Brian and
Dale and Brian, yeah.
That there's so many good patriot Americans around this great country who are trying to get information out to help people.
Yeah, that's been
awesome.
That's been the biggest reward of finishing, doing the book and launching the podcast with it. The biggest reward has been the community that I have got to know out of that experience. Absolutely priceless people, all just trying to spread the word, and there's a voice for everybody. So, we just keep talking and joining those friendships. Happy to have you amongst them now.
Yeah, and it spun off Real World Friends, too. I mean, like you and I was like a listener and a reader. I'd be on a little treadmill, listening to her podcast and her book, and look, here we are, like Real World Friends.
Yeah.
It's the communities are really valuable.
Yeah, and I've been out to Dale's house, stayed there, and it's just like being with family.
Awesome. Well, it's kind of like the Hope for Survival Zoom group.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, hopefully I'm not telling on anyone, but last year during COVID-19, a particular state had a lot of restrictions. Anyway, on a Monday, some of the members in the Signal group said, or on a Thursday night Zoom or whatever it was, they said, hey, we need to get together, right? This was on like a Monday. That Saturday, we had almost 40 people from 7 or 8, maybe 9 states that drove to this location just to spend about 6 hours together.
Wow.
Right?
That's incredible,
at Heritage Life Skills a couple of weeks ago, it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some of the ladies said, hey, is it okay with you? We'll do all the work and put it together. Can we do a Hope for Survival meal on Thursday night for whoever can come down to it? And we had about 50 people sign up for it, coming from everywhere from Maryland, Kentucky, the Carolinas, and Virginia, and so forth. These are real people. It's
right. The grassroots effort's awesome.
Yeah, it's easy to set it. It was easy for me to set up my website, and I'm getting emails from these people with names, but these are real people.
Mm-hmm.
They're the 70-plus-year-old lady who's building her own chicken coop and who's building her own greenhouse. right? And sitting at a table with them and listening to them talk about what they're working on. But the single most important thing I walked away from, I told them after Heritage, I said, I just kind of sat back at a table and I was like watching all of you. And it was so rewarding to feel like from all of you, I could say one word that would apply to every single one of you, and it was hope.
Mm-hmm.
You all were happy, y'all were sharing, you were bonding, and you departed when it was all over, having learned a lot in 3 days, but you had hope. And if we can do that for people to help teach them skills and all of that, but to give them hope, if things in the country go bad, you know what? I have food. I can survive for a while. I know how to grow a garden now if I need to. I know how to can if I need to. I know how to dehydrate if I need to, or some of them's freeze drying. I know how to filter and clean water if I need to. So it's that is the return that's rewarding.
Yeah, and the more people in that community you can bring online, the better.
Yeah.
Because then you have, I always say it's a choice, right? Like we can choose, are you going to go Mad Max scenario, or are you going to choose to bond together as communities and go through hard times together, grow together, literally, and figure out a better place to be together? Or are we going to go to, up against each other? And so I just think that the more people we can bring online, love your insurance analogy. It's the one I always go to. You have car insurance, you have house insurance, you have life, people have pet insurance.
Yeah.
But you don't have backup food supply in your house for if something were to happen, or like medical supply for in case you had that little hiccup. That's just silly in my opinion. And it shouldn't be looked on as like a weird thing. It should be an average everyday thing so we can get through whatever comes.
It's a responsible thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what mother or father wants to be standing, up to their nose in stress and problems because things aren't working out well, and they look and their young child looks and says, "Mommy or Daddy, I'm hungry," and you don't have a response for them.
Yeah.
Because you didn't listen when other people tried to get you to prepare and put stuff back.
You got that 100% spot on.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
and something else too is, I think I mentioned this the other night. When you're doing all this work pre-event, right, and meeting people and learning together and all that, and you have 1 or 2 or 3 houses who they won't take part, that's actually a good thing. Because you now can go and you can look at your master overhead of your neighborhood and your community, and you can mark those houses. And now you're going to know if things goes bad, these are probably the folks who are not going to have food. They might survive a day, and you might potentially have problems out of them that you need to be on the alert for them.
True.
Right?
So, Butch, I got one kind of sideways question at you before we wrap up, because we got to get wrapping it up here soon. But with the inflation is crazy right now. If anybody has been watching it, we're inflating like crazy. Oh, and everybody who's listening, I'm not doing the Changing Earth update today because I just want to get as much time with Butch as possible. Things are looking pretty good, or else I would do the update, but we're a little slow. So we did have some earthquakes over in New Jersey last week, which was very weird. Yeah. So that's not normal. And we kind of warned you that was coming last week. And also West Coast didn't get hit. So that's always a good thing. We don't want fires. But anyway, Butch, with this inflation, all this craziness that's just going on right now, what are some of the items? We don't usually talk barter items because I'm not a huge believer in it. But I'm not for all this Bitcoin stuff. I think it's just, if we lose our electric grid and all your money's invested there, I mean, you have nothing. So what would you invest in if you had extra money that is something you could buy today that would either be useful in a grid down scenario, or it's something you could turn around later once we got through this period of inflation and be able to profit off of?
that's a great question. One of the things that everything that I share with folks that are on Hope for Survival, I apply to myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of look at myself as we're together in this. I'm no different than you. I've just been blessed to have a good background that I can share things with you to maybe help you, right? So I put together probably 6 months or so ago, I put together about a 33-page checklist, but it's categorized. And one of the categories that I have in there is, I think I may have called it the 24-hour checklist. Like you woke up and, oh crap, you can't get money out of the ATM. You can't, everything has just changed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the list of when I run out the door and my wife runs out the door, where we're going to take our cash and things we're going to buy, right? If we hadn't recently, we're going to replenish some gas canisters,
Mm-hmm.
tires, batteries, car batteries
Oh,
that
car
we
batteries.
also use on solar,
Yep.
right? One of us is going to go to like a Dollar General type store or Walmart type store ahead of the rush, okay?
Right.
Again, other folks are just now figuring out their ice cream's melting in their freezer and they don't know why. All of the over-counter stuff that we can get, like cough syrups, anything of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
Band-Aids, bandages, Tylenols, all of that kind of stuff.
That's
as
funny
well.
because when everybody was buying toilet paper, that's exactly what I was buying at the store.
Yeah.
Was all the
Mhm.
over-counter medicines. Yep.
Because all those things that the average 90%er they go by, we already have,
Yeah.
right? So we already know on average, to survive a year, you need 188 rolls of toilet paper,
Yep.
right? Or you need like the ability to have 1,050 gallons of water.
Or one phone book.
Correct. Or,
Yeah.
Ouch.
yeah. But where can you find a phone book at now, you know?
Yeah, they get delivered.
uh,
You can probably pick up all the ones on the street and have a ball.
So in our own personal bank,
Mhm.
if you know what I'm saying. So on that checklist, it's we cover that. That's just a couple of the items. Tools,
Yeah.
shovels, additional shovels, things that I'm going to need around my house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Maybe additional netting to go over like the berry bushes that the birds just like to destroy,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
Things that are going to aid us in continuing
Yeah.
what we need to do to survive, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can find somewhere luckily and go get just a bag full of seeds. We have plenty, but it wouldn't hurt to have more.
Fasteners,
yeah.
nails, screws,
Yeah.
bolts.
So
I was thinking like alcohol. You know, not for drinking, for medicinal uses, things like that.
We stocked up a few years ago on the little airplane bottles.
Oh yeah.
Before they started escalating in price, yeah, we bought quite a bit of that for medicinal.
That makes sense.
And I mean, you can use it to if you have to, you can use it to clean wounds, and you can also use it if you don't have any kind of sedation.
Mm-hmm.
Teeth, any kind of tooth problems, trying to numb, get, knock the individual out a little bit. So it's thing on there. We had already put back several years ago. I bought sheets of high quality plywood and stored it if I need to like cover my windows or anything like that. So and a good example, and again, I'm not throwing rocks at anyone, but this was kind of a hard lesson learned for some folks in preparedness. Canning. You know, there's a shortage of canning lids
Jars.
and right.
Yep.
So this again, this is thinking ahead. We knew 2 years ago they were a little bit hard to find. Last year they got harder to find. This year they're very hard to find. So a couple years ago, if part of your food plan down the road, if part of your food plan is you're going to grow vegetables, and you're going to, like for us, we can vegetables and we can meat. We can beef, chicken, and pork, right?
Right.
If I know that I need that protein as part of my food plan, I don't just need the beef, but I need what I'm going to put it in.
The jars. Yep.
So
or you need a plan B.
Yes, and so what is that going to be if you can't get lids and jars, right? And you don't have any solar to maybe keep it cool so you don't lose it, or it goes back to that 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is better.
3 is better.
A plan, you got to have a plan to replace the plan that replaced the other plan.
That's true. That's
true. And it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to some folks, but it's just getting them, step back, take a breath, right?
Just doing something is going to be better than nothing.
Yeah, I've known folks, bless their heart, that went and drained their 401.
Oh, yeah.
And they would go, I wrote about one of them, I think, in the mindset of the other book, but people notice things that change. People notice when you do something that is out of the norm. So if you have parked your car in your garage for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden now you park your cars out of the garage, what do you have in your garage?
Right.
And this dude took like 40 grand or 50 grand and he converted a 2-car garage into a Faraday cage.
Okay.
Or the group that just got into preparedness.
Yeah.
And they spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars buying masses. But when you say, well, what was your plan? How are you going to use this?
I don't know.
Right? You gotta have a plan. It's nice to have all this stuff, but you need a plan.
Yep.
If you don't know how you're going to use it, why did you buy it?
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's firearms, whether, you can get all into the offensive and defensive method.
Yeah. The plan is, I like the strategy and the mindset. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. And we are blessed, you and Chen, myself and Dell and Brian and Jim and many, many others. We probably don't have enough time in the day, 7 days a week, but we have something that can really contribute to helping the people around us have some sustainability to survive most events. Maybe not all of them, but if we give them the hope that they can, then maybe they will then energize on their own.
That's spectacular.
To be more self-dependent versus dependent on the system.
Yep.
The system was never designed for so much human dependency, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah.
And that's just how I see it. I'm one nut hanging on the tree, right?
I love it. We're gonna have you back on, Butch, because we could go.
For sure.
There's so many things. We're just skimming the top of so many topics that we could dive into. But why don't you go?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you are so welcome. Why don't you go ahead? Let people know about your books again, your website, where to find you. I've been putting it up on the slides for them if you guys are watching on Rumble or over on Twitch or on YouTube. You guys have been seeing the slides, but if you're listening to the audio podcast, here we go. One more time. What's your books and where do people find you and get involved in Hope for Survival?
All right. You can find me at, you can laugh after I tell you this, but it's https://www.hopeforsurvival.com. If you type in www.hopeforsurvival.com, you will not find me.
Huh.
I have to have a HTTPS. Don't ask me why.
Crazy. I think I did on Echo. I think I got you up on Echo, just like that on the Echo browser. It actually came up. Yep.
Well, you're special.
I see. I'm so
Yes,
good.
she is.
Maybe because
Come
I
on.
already looked for it before.
I'm on YouTube, Hope for Survival, and I'm on MeWe, which is kind of a long address, MeWe.com. It's Hope for Survival 2. I don't know where the 2 came
If you guys
from.
go over to the Changing Earth group there, and Butch is up,
Yes.
we're friends over there. I'll get you hooked up.
And my books are, the first one was 3 years ago. It's the Hope for Survival, Getting You Prepared for Disasters, How Preparing Food, Water, Shelter, and Security Could Save Your Life. It's more of a manual.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spire-bound book, but it's more of a workbook manual.
Awesome.
It also has food, water, shelter, security, medicinal, Dr. Alton, Joe Alton. Let me use some of his stuff in here.
Beautiful. Do you have like how to do your binder and stuff like that in there?
How to do what now?
Your binder, like set up your binder.
Like your family binder.
You're talking about setting up your family plan?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also it's on my website.
Perfect.
And I'm hoping that I'm not an IT guy, so I'm trying to like figure all this out. while
Talk
I'm
to me
doing
about
it.
that after. I think I know what platform you're on. So talk to me about that after the show. Yeah.
So the second
Look,
book
yep.
is Hope for Survival, the Mindset. And basically, it is trying to get you to understand, to move from the 90% mindset to the 10% mindset. And I go through scenario after scenario after scenario. Things have happened in my life when I was serving overseas and terrorist attacks and stuff like that. But by the end of the book, the whole point is on the front, there's a person walking through a tunnel and a bright light's in front of them. And you could say it's a train coming, but by the end of the book, the goal is that you would say that there's hope on the other side of the light because it's light from the outside.
Wow.
And all proceeds from my books goes to charity. I don't keep any of the money from it. And I fund a program that buys food for the homeless and the unemployed. And on the first book alone, in the first 2.5 years, we have been able roughly to buy about 17,000 pounds of food.
Wow.
So
Good for you, man.
Yeah, good
and
mission.
and we're pimping this book. You can't buy them on Amazon.
Yep, good
Amazon
job.
They wanted to charge too much money
Uh-huh.
to sell the book. So, like I said, we're
Grassroots. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
we're trying to.
Everybody's got to get those 2 books.
Yeah,
It'll
go to
definitely help them out.
Do the HTTPS, remember, colon, / www.hopeforsurvival.com. Butch, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's like being with family. I enjoyed it.
We're going to have you back for sure. That was a great
Absolutely.
conversation. So until next
Appreciate
time, remember, dream,
Survive.
thrive.
Thank you for joining Sarah and Chen for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast at www.authorSarahFHathaway.com. If you love the Changing Earth